And welcome back to Green Gaming Fest. I am your host, BTF Flotsam, and we have QuackSilver playing the Abandonment ending for Lone Fungus. So, QuackSilver, take us away.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Quack. I'm back from the hosting mic to the runner seat. I'm super excited. I have a pair of pixelated Metroidvanias here, both of which have an environmental theme. I thought it was great to be able to submit Lone Fungus in particular for Green Gaming Fest. This is also the first ever marathon appearance of Lone Fungus, so I'm very excited to be carrying the torch. I'm going to be running a category called Abandonment Ending, which is the note the heck out ending, where we simply do not do any of Greencap, our protagonist's responsibilities, and get out of the world while the getting is good. Before we begin, I just want to shout out the devs of the two games I'm running tonight are good friends, and so there is a skin in Lone Fungus that features Haiku the robot, and I think that is beautiful. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started here in 3, 2, 1, go. And as soon as I load into the game here, I'm going to decide that I don't actually want to play the game, and I am going to quit right back out. That's because our initial save point is saved as a shrine that is a decent chunk of the way below us, so it actually saves about 20 seconds to just immediately save and quit out. I'm going to do one more save and quit at the sword pickup in the room above me, and then for a while you're not going to see me save and quit anymore, because while it is a good way to teleport back to your shrine, unfortunately all of the bosses in this game, which are most of our pickups, not all, but most, drop a hard save as soon as you walk into their arena, and drop another hard save as soon as you pick up the item that they drop. So it's worth noting that I'm playing on Explorer difficulty, which is the lowest of 4 available base difficulties. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to. Mostly the comfort level of it is that you start with 7 HP as opposed to normal's 5 and hardcore's 3. But one of the interesting things about this game is that the death mechanics actually change depending on your difficulty level. So on Explorer, the deaths behave like they do in Celeste, where when you die, I respawn at room start. All right. Whereas on higher difficulties, you can actually death warp back to shrines, because that's where the game tries to put you. There are some other things that make hardcore, in particular, not necessarily appealing, even though that is true. But I will be doing a little bit of a healthy walk back in the early game in particular. And coming up here, I'm picking up one of our most major abilities throughout the entirety of the run, which is the parry. In this game, Greencap cannot up slash. He hat too big for he gosh darn sword. And so one of the most effective ways to damage things above you, as well as just a good damage source in general, is by parrying enemy projectiles. The parry does 30 damage to the sword's 10. Those yellow triangles, yellow-orange triangles on my UI there in the top left are the available parries I have. When they're yellow, they're active, and when they're orange, they're down. And a lot of things in this game fly above you, so if you can't get on top of them, parrying is incredibly useful. This is the first boss. It's Warrior Statue, and it's mostly here to tutorialize how to deal with giant flying enemies. We're going to get on top of him and sort of cram ourselves into this little nook so that I can pogo him to death. And that's Warrior Statue. As soon as the boss dies, their contact hitbox instantly disappears, so you'll see me pogoing inside the boss's quote-unquote hitbox so that I can pick up the items they drop as fast as possible, which in Warrior Statue's case was Mush Mover Infusion, which turns on all these fun little green orbs and arrows in the overworld. Core feature of this game is mush moving. I'm going to gain the ability to conjure my own mush mover after the next boss. But for right now, we'll use the ones the game so lovingly places around the world. Generally, like sort of sword-based platforming is a major feature of this game.
Do we have time for a donation?
Absolutely, this is the perfect time.
All right, we have $40 from Five, who was a previous runner, paying for the mine skit, which was at $20. Good luck to all the upcoming runners. Put this donation towards runner's choice.
Oh, awesome. I will have to, on my intermission, I'll have to figure out what remains open. But thank you so much.
Well, if you want me to talk about which ones they are to give you time to think about it.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, a lot of the incentives all the incentives have been bet, but there are still 2 bid wars going on. The option to pick Cluna's costume for Cluna 2, win the tier's Veil, with the options being Cluna 1, Cluna 2, and 3 video game-based hats on Pac-Man, Don Chan, and Prince Katamari. Or picking the character for Isaac, which is currently $10 towards randomly assigning it and $0 towards getting the runner to pick it.
Alright. That is good to know. I appreciate it. So for Magus there, I was trying to go for a 2-cycle that requires pogoing his horizontal projectiles, and I'm actually getting very bullied here. You hate to see it. It's possible to kill him in just 2 spawns. It's actually possible to kill him in 1 spawn, but is somewhat unreasonably tight. But with that, we've picked up probably the most powerful ability in the game, which is Conjure Mush Mover. Conjure Mush Mover spawns a Mush Mover wherever we want in the overworld, which we can pogo. But more critically, we can use it for a technique called Mush Boosting, which has 2 variants. Basically, the game does not want you to spawn a Mush Mover in the same space that you are in. So it will give you a little bit of pushback whenever you try to do that. And we can abuse that both horizontally and vertically. Horizontally, you'll see me turn around, spawn a Mush Mover, then turn back around and jump. And vertically, I just jump and place a Mush Mover down as I do it. The horizontal one in particular is a great way to buff our walking speed for the early game. This game sort of has a number of areas and tricks that are sort of soft unintended, where you're not technically supposed to get there like dev intent as written, but also the dev gave you this incredibly powerful movement tool right away and low-key expects you to use it to go exploring. So this is the second area, Color Caverns. Color Caverns is where we're going to pick up 2 more very major movement abilities here in just a second. It also features those fun little germ cycles, as well as probably my personal least favorite enemy in the game, this centipede, which I'm just going to kill because the centipede jumps after you and has the most insane long jump I have ever seen. Don't worry about that NPC robot who is watching us. In this run, we're simply never going to see him again. So here, that was one of those sort of soft unintended skips where I got up to this boss, Queen Evil Eye. Queen Evil Eye is the most frustrating boss in Lone Fungus right now. She's an incredibly RNG fight because her movements are quite erratic, and ideally, you just pogo on her the whole time. But because there are ads that she spawns from the ceiling, spikes in the ceiling, and... Oh, are we getting the God tier QEE? Not quite. That was incredibly kind, though. That was maybe the best. That's a better QEE than I have had in any sort of practice. This parry might do it. Yeah, alright, that was a fantastic Queen Evil Eye. Normally, her movement is a little too erratic to ride the mechanical bull for that long, but I'm not going to be mad about that marathon luck. So Queen Evil Eye gives us our forwards dash. Note the conspicuous forwards tacked on there. We'll revisit that in a little bit. And with that, we're going to progress right past her and into the area which has my favorite music in the game, probably, Mechanical Fort. We are doing this to get our first and only real spell for the run. Mush Mover Conjure Mush Mover is sort of a half spell. It's treated like a spell sometimes and not other times, so this is the full deal. This is a boss called Master Block Monster. It's a bit of an interesting fight because we can just walk over there and he's stationary and slash him, but these bouncy balls that spawn in do 75 damage each. Oop. Alright, come on now. Alright, that was a fine Master Block Monster. He's gonna give us a spell called the Bouncy Ball, which I'm going to equip here during the tutorial, teaching me how to equip spells. And we're gonna move back towards Color Caverns, but not before tagging into that room briefly so that that gold shrine is registered on my map. One of the other important things about Explorer difficulty is that your map updates automatically on it, as opposed to whenever you save at your shrine. So I can just walk into and out of rooms to make sure the shrine appears as a teleport destination. Since you can teleport between gold shrines in this game, which is an ability you have at game start, which is fantastic quality of life. And moving right along, this run moves at you very fast. This is a trick called Screwball. This is a giant screw. We have a ball, and Screw King's weak spot is about the size and shape of our ball. A little bit far out there. There we go. So Screw King only has 100 HP, and the fight is supposed to be more or less choreographed where you have these 10 instances of 10 damage sword swings each. I'm just gonna finish the fight normally, I think. Yeah. But by doing a bouncy ball to his head, we can deal up to 70 damage. I got the maximum amount there, actually, which was pretty cool. And skip one of his 2 tantrum phases, where he jumps around invincibly for a while, which saves a ton of time. So what I've got here is sort of the widely considered to be base movement in this game, where you got 2 dashes, and any 1 spell plus Mush Mover, but it's far and away not the most broken movement we can have in this game, which I'm gonna be on my way to grab next. There is a 2-part item chain I need to grab here. First, we're going up to the top of Deep Grotto here, sort of climbing. This is the path we were supposed to take down to our first shrine, but I save quit past. Now we're going to do a couple of height tricks. Firstly, Bouncy Ball refreshes your dash when you pogo it. And secondly, you can swap spells twice to instantly despawn and respawn your Mush Mover, which, because that despawn and respawn is much, much faster than just ordinarily despawning it with the spell button, you can actually use it to gain infinite height. And the other category in the bid war here, Selfish Ending, does about 4,000,000,006 of those in order to reach a boss in this game very, very early. The Selfish Ending world record right now is, I believe, 15 minutes to get the final boss, just under 15 minutes. Which I think is really cool. But that first upgrade that I picked up at the top of Deep Grotto there was Water Breathing, which I just used. Ordinarily, when you enter water, a 4-second countdown will begin, after which Green Cap drowns and takes a damage and respawns. It's not a death. This isn't Sonic. But with Water Breathing, I can make it through that very long tunnel. And we can access Ice Physics, everyone's favorite. Oh, let me not lose my dash here. Come on. There we go. 4 HP is probably fine to YOLO this room. Shoutouts to my penguin enjoyers in chat. Alright, but that's Ground Bounce. Ground Bounce is the most busted ability in this game, and it's not particularly close. With Ground Bounce, you can bounce on the ground. We can bounce on walls vertically. By combining it with dash, we can get an unreasonable amount of horizontal speed. We're going to be using it for a number of skips, as well as just generally going very fast. The big thing about ground bounce is that it's quite unwieldy, actually. Like, it's exceedingly easy to ground bounce into enemies. And so this is another good part of Explorer, is that I can play a little bit fast and loose in some of these ground bounce sections. Because if I die, which I'm gonna try not to do here, because this is not one of those sections. Great, there's our shrine. But we can just take the health refresh. And there's one final abuse of the fact that bouncy ball resets our dash. And now we're into Acid Dungeon. Right away, I'm gonna be running around to sort of the bottom of Acid Dungeon, because that's where Undergrounds, which is the final area of the game, is for this run. And there are two major tricks that I'm going to be doing that both abuse ground bounce in a somewhat unintended way in order to skip needing other abilities that take considerably more time to get. So the big thing here is I would very much love to ground bounce across this hallway, but I need a fair bit of health for the next skip I'm gonna do. This should be perfect. I may even take the heal. So in the next room, there is a long hallway that silences Green Cap, which means he can't heal or cast spells. It's meant to force you to get an acid jump ability, but ground bounce is so good that we're just gonna go for a little swim. And that's Sandal Skip. We're not quite done with abusing ground bounce, though. There's one more silence room that expects you to get the wall bounce ability, but by taking advantage of the fact that ground bounce actually works on walls, including these tiny gap walls over on the other side here. This may take a little bit. That looks good. Yeah, there we go. So we bounce on the wall just by the thorns there. Nice. All right, and that's gonna get us into Undergrounds. This is the final area that I'm gonna see in this run, because we're gonna leave the game world from here. So these little spiked balls are a great reason why the death resets are incredibly helpful here, because sometimes you get off cycle and things go very poorly. Alright, so there's a fun little skip there where one more time we're getting underneath some acid, and then hopefully, I'm just gonna take the death here to be safe. Alright. Something you may notice is that because there are so many buttons in this game, every time I'm ground bouncing, I'm swapping my spells, and that's because I have them both bound to the same key. I play on Switch Pro Controller, and regrettably, keyboard is definitely optimal for this game. Just gonna take this a little bit slow. Alright. So yeah, Undergrounds is full of these really tight corridors. I thought I had that. Alright, we may take one more safety death here, but we're going to climb this vertical hallway. I think I may just heal to 3, and that should be sufficient if I don't die here. I said if I don't die here. I'm going to go to 3. So time is actually coming up. There are just 2 rooms left in the game. This one could take me a second, though. This is a very freeform room that is quite challenging to go through. I'm going to use a combination of spell cancel pogos and the bouncy ball dash refresh. Never mind, we got it first try. Amazing marathon luck. So time is coming up as soon as I nope out of the world at the back end of this room. It's just a sequence of ground bounces. And time. If you didn't understand the lore of that game, neither do I, because speedrunning is awesome. But yeah, obviously the time for this has come down considerably, and that is a huge testament to the runners. This game just came out a couple of weeks ago. Is a huge testament to all of the runners who've been piling into the Lone Fungus Discord and putting in work to kill these estimates. I made the estimate before the game came out in full release. And I could not be happier to be showing off all of the silly things we've been able to do to the game in just 2 short weeks. Yeah, so Lone Fungus is conventionally timed in-game time. 16 exactly. You hate to see it. We'll get there. We'll get there. That was a really good run. I was very happy with how everything went in that. But yeah, that's Lone Fungus basically. There are 3 endings to the game. This is definitely the silliest of them, both because Ground Bounce is incredibly silly, and also because the ending itself is very silly. But I'm super grateful to have been able to share this with you all.
All right. I believe that means that we prepared to switch over to our incredible next runner of Quack again, doing his run of Haiku the robot, where we have to dunk the robot.
Amazing.